Happy Easter weekend, everyone. This is the Manuscript Podcast, the podcast where we believe 21st century man controls his destiny, that his choices define his future, and that he writes the script to his own freaking life. I'm your host and fellow man, Reuben Stamper, and as always, it's an honor, a pleasure, and a privilege to have you here with me today. Thank you so much for watching. If you get something out of this episode, consider subscribing. It would mean the world to me. All right, we're jumping right into things. I'm excited. We're going to be talking today in the first segment about why all men need daily routines and what it does for you. Let's get started. If you've been around this world for any small amount of time, you may have recognized that as Americans specifically, we have a lot of free time. And so the question becomes for men, how do we use that free time to actually become the best men we can be? That should, I think, be the ultimate goal for every man out there is what can I do to actually become a better man? And daily routines are a huge part of actually actualizing yourself into the best man you can be. So I'm going to talk about a bunch of things today that relate to like why you should have a daily routine as a man and why it actually just in so many ways ups the quality of your life. So first and foremost, I want to talk about productivity. Now, I think it's important to not worship on the altar of productivity. I've said this before. You shouldn't bow down and say, oh, well, to be productive is the highest thing I can be. No, that's not true. But I do think that all men are called in different aspects to be productive. What does that mean? It means to actually go and create, to do something, and to be able to look back on a volume of work that you have done. And that could be work on a bunch of different things. It could be work on your relationships, work on your actual, income producing work. It could be work on side projects, on bettering yourself. But regardless, we're called to, in my opinion, be productive and to actually use our time well. And I've said it a million times, I'm pro leisure, relaxation, and all that good stuff. But you also have to keep that in check. And so a daily routine helps you stay productive. And on that note, productivity and goal attainment are two kind of different things. One, productivity relates to goal attainment, but having a daily routine when you set ambitious goals for yourself is so helpful in helping you achieve those goals. Why is this? Because if you don't have a daily routine, your time is it's wishy-washy, right? You don't have things planned, and you don't have. And I've talked in a previous episode about why men should stay busy. But this is more granular, is this idea of, you should have things you do every single day that keep you on track for being able to achieve the things you wish to achieve with your life. And yeah, a daily routine does exactly that. So you say, okay, I wake up in the morning, I do X, Y, or Z, I come home, I do X, Y, or Z. And these aren't things that limit you, and, people say that's an unromantic idea of like, oh, well, you're just going to live such a stiff life, and you're going to be on a regiment, and you're never going to deviate from the path. And to a certain extent, that is what a daily routine does for you. That's true. But on the other hand, a daily routine is meant to help you live the best life you can live. It's not meant to limit you. It's like any rule out there, right? My faith, Catholic religion, gets a bunch of shit because it's like, oh, well, you're being held back by all these, stupid religious rules. And it's like, I would make the argument, no, it's actually supposed to keep you in bounds so that you can achieve your goals, so you can become the best version of yourself. And so a daily routine is very similar. It's like you're setting in place the things you love to do, the things that matter to you, the things you value. And then you're saying, how do I daily, rededicate myself to those goals and tasks? And so there are certain things with a daily routine, obviously, like brushing your teeth, like working out. These things, maybe not working out because that is oriented towards a goal of getting in good shape. But like brushing your teeth, obviously, it's not like you're going to see the results right away. It's not like there's a huge goal at the end of the tunnel. It's just, I don't want my teeth to rot out. I want to have good hygiene. And so I'm going to do this thing. And sure, that's not sexy. But there are lots of parts of your daily routine that can really, over time, they accumulate, they build on themselves. And then you look back one day and you're like, damn, because I stayed steady with this routine that kept me on track, I'm here. And if I hadn't done those things, I would be in a much worse spot. So yeah, things like working out, things like choosing to spend time reading or educating yourself, things like having, like my wife and I like to pray in the mornings. That really matters to us, and it brings us really close together. Uh, having time to go on a walk with your significant other. All these things can over time build on themselves, and then you look back one day and you're like, wow, I'm really proud of where I'm at right now. So for goal achievement, having a daily routine as a man is incredibly important. Now, let's talk about your mental well-being. Okay, so this relates to a previous thing I just said, which was I think men are called to be productive in some way or another. We are meant to go create, to do, not just to passively sit around and waste all our time. And I think if you are sitting around and wasting all your time and not doing things that you love that create lasting memories, that add value to your life, if you're not doing those things, you're going to inevitably have those mental struggles that a lot of men who sit around all day have. Like you fall into depression, you fall into self-loathing. And I don't want that for you. I don't want that for myself. And so I think one way to help remedy that is to, okay, I'm going to have a daily regimen that I stick to, a daily routine that I stick to. And it's going to, at a very base level, help me achieve certain things. And then once you've filled out your daily routine, you've got it under control, you can build on it and you can make it slowly better over time. And that kind of rolls into the whole idea of discipline and self-improvement is the idea that, my daily routine is just what I do every single day. It does not change, and it may not take a ton of time, but you stick to it. And then when you have other things you find out in life that you think are interesting, like, I don't know, maybe you're into ice baths. Okay, you could make that part of your daily routine. You just add it in. But if you've already had this time that was like, I get a shower this time of night, it's like, okay, well, instead, I'm switching it out for an ice bath because I've read some cool things on it. Seems like it can be helpful for a lot of different areas of my life. I'm going to try and build on that. And so there are all these cool things you can build in that make you a really interesting person and that actually build your character. So anyways, on the topic of discipline and self-improvement, having a daily routine is incredibly important. And then, lastly, the thing I want to talk about is consistency. It's this idea that your life isn't bouncing around everywhere. You actually have a path that you're on. And sure, you will go off the path occasionally, and you're not going to be perfect with it. I certainly am not, and I'm trying to work on this. But having that daily routine, it sets a trajectory for you, right? So you're like, I'm here now. I'm at the bottom of the hill now, but 10 years down the road, I'll probably be at the top of the hill or at least halfway up, and I'll be consistently getting better. And that's what having a daily routine does for you. It keeps you on track. And so if you have these things in your life, you say, I am a person who does not deviate from doing these things. I brush my teeth. I work out daily. I go for a run. Whatever the things are in your life that matter. I read a book. All these things that will contribute to you becoming a better man, having those set in place in your daily routine, it adds a sense of peace and consistency to your life because at the end of the day, when you close your eyes, you at least, at the very most basic level, achieved X, Y, or Z. And so, for all these reasons, I am trying to convey the idea that, yes, as men, I think we all should have a daily routine. Everyone's is going to look different. We all have different things that we value, and that's totally fine. But not having one in place is terrible for the overall health of your life in so many different areas. It's this idea of like having a budget, like our government is freaking terrible at this. But even your personal budget with how much money you're going to spend from your household, if you don't tell your dollars where to go, all of a sudden you're going to look up and they'll be gone. And you'll be like, what happened? And the same thing can happen to your time. If you're not going to sit down and have a plan, then, for your time will make the plans for you. And then you look back and you're like, what the hell did I do all day? And so put a plan in place. Have a daily routine. It'll make you into a happier and a better man. All right. On to section 2. I hope you enjoyed the first section of the Manuscript Podcast. All right, everyone. In section 2 of the Manuscript Podcast, we are going to be talking all about Senator Bernie Sanders' new proposition to drop the work week to 32 hours and why I think it's bullshit, personally. Okay, so I'm going to read a little excerpt from the Bernie Sanders Senator site. But before I do that, I'd like to explain what this proposal would do. It would drop the overtime I guess cap is what you'd call it, the overtime cap from 40 hours a week to 32 hours a week. So any hours you work over 32 hours would be considered overtime hours, and employers would have to pay that. Now, on the front end, like all these things politicians tell you, this sounds great. Free college, that sounds great. Someone's got to pay for it. Nothing is free. And for a lot of young people, it seems like this idea will never get through their thick skulls that at the end of the day, truly nothing is fully free. Someone is always paying on the other end. So I'd like to read this little excerpt. Here we go. The world has undergone enormous changes since the 40-hour workweek was set by the Fair Labor Standards Act in 1940. American workers are now over 400% more productive than they were back then, and continued technological advances are likely to increase the gap between worker productivity and worker gains. While weekly wages for the average American worker are actually lower than they were 50 years ago after adjusting for inflation, CEOs are now making nearly 400 times more than what their employees earn. It's time that working families, not just CEOs and wealthy shareholders, are able to benefit from increased productivity so that they can enjoy more leisure time, family time, education and cultural opportunities, and less stress. Okay, so some of this sounds good, some of it sounds bad. But I have a couple things that kind of got me a little heated when I was reading this. So first off, I'm gonna just make some sad and some not sad truths available to us. Here we go. America is and will remain the economic powerhouse of the world for the reason that we work more than other countries do. We are a harder working society overall. Now, obviously, that's waning, and people are out there saying our work ethic is shit, and I understand that. And people are saying that, a 32-hour work week sounds great. Sure, it sounds great. But there are always trade-offs. So later on in the document, they cite that dropping to a 32-hour work week really isn't a radical or new idea. In fact, France already has a 35-hour work week, and there's soon to be a 32-hour work week. And then it goes to cite, and French has the 7th largest economy in the world, as if they're touting that like that's a metric that's great. Oh, it's the 7th largest economy in the world. Okay, I dug a little bit deeper into that. Their GDP, according to worldometers.com, is $43,061. Do you know what the GDP for the average American is? $75,269. Now, you can pretend all day that dropping the work week down to 32 hours is going to fix all your problems. And, that sounds great. I get more money in my paycheck. And, this is going to hurt the big man, the big corporations. It's not true. It's just simply not true. As a matter of fact, this proposal would actually kill small business. The only ones that can foot the bill, that can actually deal with this increased cost, because what this means is any hours you work over 32 hours, the business has to pay you time and a half. That will crush so many small businesses out there. That's why it's a ludicrous idea. All these politicians are out there saying things like this, and then they don't take into account the fact that, I stand for the little guy. No, you don't. Because the only people that can actually afford to pay their people more is these giant corporations that have tons of money. So, you're out there saying, well, CEOs are making nearly 400 times more than their employees earn. They own the business, basically. Like, that's why they get paid more. They work harder. They have more stress. There is a correlation there that people don't ever want to look at. They're like, oh, my boss gets paid so much. That's because he is dealing with all the stresses of owning a business and keeping it running and trying to make it profitable each year. There's a lot of wear and tear that comes from that stress, and so he gets rewarded accordingly. And sure, there's bad actors out there, and there are CEOs that do nothing and are just shitty and are there because their father owned Walmart or whatever. Okay, fair. But that's not most CEOs. It's really not. And I'd be interested to see where they got their 400 times more than what their employees earn. Like, okay, they throw these numbers out there, but they don't give you exact reasons for why they are the way they are. And so, yeah, that's one thing that I have a gripe about is it would kill small business, and that is like the powerhouse of America. That's what makes us economically one of the strongest countries in the world, is that we have so much small business. Okay, and then the last thing I have a bone to pick with is this. They say that we should drop it to a 32-hour work week because we need more leisure time, family time, education and cultural opportunities, and less stress. Okay, I think that this claim is inherently false. I'm going to go ahead and say it. And it's sad. It's sad. I wish this weren't the case, but there's people who have these idealistic dreams out there, and there are people who deal in reality. And the reality is we already have tons of leisure time. And with that leisure time, the vast majority of us, and I've cited these numbers in previous episodes, the vast majority of us do not use that time for all the things they quoted in here. We do not use it for family time. We do not use it for leisure and educational opportunities. We do use it for leisure, but we don't use it for educational and cultural opportunities. And so they're putting out this idea that, if we just had more free time, we would be happier, we'd be less stressed, and there's actually no evidence supporting that claim. So what do we do when we have more free time? The vast majority of us, and I'm not saying everyone, and I try not to be this way, and I hope as a man listening to this, you are not trying to be this way, but if you get more free time, most of us are just consuming. We are giving into the hyper-consumerist culture that is all around America, where it's like there's so much to enjoy, and there's so much pleasure and relaxation and leisure time that we should have. And so what do? We sit down, we play video games, which, once again, I don't have a problem with in moderation. Watch TV, no problem with in moderation. We scroll through our phones. We sit around. Why? Because we have so many stimulators that can be found right on our screens. That's what we do with our time. And it's sad, and I don't think it's the way that it should be, but that's the way it currently is. So until we fix that problem, this whole claim that, it'll be more family time, more education and cultural opportunities, and less stress, I don't even know if there's a correlation to less stress. Maybe there is. Maybe. There's a case that could be made for that. But then also on the flip side, if we have all that extra free time, another 8 hours into our week, which, by the way, the average American already has like 40 hours of waking hours to do whatever they want in the week, which is kind of unheard of historically. I know we think that that's like nothing. It's like, well, that means half of my waking hours are spent at work. Okay, fair. But your other half aren't, and you can kind of do what you will with that, what you want. And so we already have a ton of leisure time. I don't think we need more. Add another 8 hours onto that. Okay, do you think we're going to become a more educated society? More culturally understanding society? Less stressed? I don't know, because if my proposition, which is that we would probably just spend our time consuming more and more and being on our devices more and more, then no, I think that actually leads to us being more stressed, more unhappy. And maybe it's not stress in the sense of work stress as we think of it. Maybe it's the opposite of stress. It's a slow rotting, a decaying of our body and of our mind. And that's what happens. Is that it's depression, I guess, is almost the opposite of stress. Stress is when you're in a highly intense situation or you have things weighing on your shoulders that you've got to work on, or else they're going to eat you alive. Like depression is like it comes up from under the ground, basically, right? It's like it's a different thing. Yes, I understand this completely, but I don't think that's going to lead to less stress, because depressed people are stressed too. Like it's pretending that knocking out 8 hours from our work week is going to radically change our lives for the better, I think is asinine. Okay, so anyways, I know I kind of went off on this whole thing. It's just, it annoys me because it's so easy for politicians to put out these crazy ideas and say, this is normal and this would help everyone. And then they don't take into account the actual, or maybe they do and they just brush it aside, the actual impact of what their policies could do. Like I said, I am not a fan of small businesses having to fork out cash like crazy to keep people employed that work over 32 hours a week. Most small businesses are open from Monday to Saturday, right? That's how it works. And so you have to keep people staffed for that amount of time. And, obviously there are different shifts and things like that happen. Absolutely. But I think overall it would be very bad for small business, and I'm a huge fan of small business. I really am. So anyways, that's all I have to say on section 2 of the podcast. I thought this was a really, really stupid proposal by Senator Bernie Sanders, And I think it's flawed in many, many ways. So anyways, moving on to section 3 of the Manuscript Podcast, Reuben Rants. Let's go. All right, everyone. I'm here to rant about overthinking. And this is actually, believe it or not, a rant against myself. I am a classic overthinker. I have been for a very long time. And it's something I've had to fight for most of my life, actually. Really, since high school, I think I've really got a handle on it. And I've become much better at just like, this is a decision we're making. We're going for it right now. And so I'm here to rant against overthinking and why it's a bullshit trait you should try and delete from your life if you find yourself being someone who overthinks. So why? Why should you stop your overthinking ways? The answer is pretty simple. It leads to inaction and indecisive results. You don't actually ever fully grasp something and fully accomplish something because you're constantly triple thinking, is this the right decision? Am I making the right decision? I don't know if this is the right decision. Well, okay. I'm here to somewhat share what has helped me a little bit, but like as a general rule of thumb, the bigger the decision, the more time it takes to make the decision. And it's pretty simple. I think most of you know this, right? But like asking a girl on a date, small decision. Should happen like that. You just make it up. You just make the decision. You're like, she seems cool. I'm asking her on a date. Asking a girl to marry you, big decision. Take some more time to think about that one. Figuring out which, pin to buy at your local store, very small decision. Should happen like that. Don't overthink it. Deciding which house you're going to buy, big decision. Like, don't just rush into that. Take some time and systematically think about it. But don't overthink all these small decisions in our lives, And I think, one of the things that employers are struggling with right now is people not having soft skills, not being able to talk to people, not being able to make decisions, that are decisive decisions, right? And not being able to talk to people and, deal with conflict and things of that nature. And so it's a very valuable skill, first off, that I think as men, if you're wanting to progress in the workplace, you probably should learn to develop. And I've struggled with this big time, but like I said, since high school, I've been working on not being an overthinker. And I'm proud to say I feel like I've made some ground up, but I've still got a long way to go. And I don't know. I was thinking about it the other day. There you go, overthinking. But I was thinking about this topic the other day, and I was like, man, if there's one thing I would say that's held me back from saying yes to opportunities that probably would have been good for me to take, or not going after things I should have gone after in my life, it's this overthinking complex that I have, and that I think a lot of men, a lot of my friends have it. We've talked about this. Like, gosh, we just overthink everything. You look back on things in the future and you think, man, that was such a simple, clear-cut decision that needed to be made, and I just took forever thinking about it, and then I didn't act. And then when I did act, it was kind of a half-assed acting. It was like I'll kind of dip my toe in, but I'm not going to step into the water. It's like step into the water, especially with small decisions, things that won't wreck your life. You don't have to take forever to think about them. Just make the decision, yes or no. That's simple. So, anyways, I know this is kind of a weird Reuben rant section, but because it was much more like, Reuben, stop overthinking, And I'm going to ask you to do the same. If you want to grow with me, I'm trying to become a better man, and I know you are too, then stop overthinking. It'll make you into a happier man. So that's all I have to say from the Reuben rant section. Hope you enjoyed. This is a great episode. I really enjoyed this. Have a great Easter weekend, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I will remind you that if you did get something out of this episode, please consider subscribing. It really would mean a lot to me. I hope you have a great Easter weekend. Enjoy your time with your family and your friends. Love you guys. Have a great day. As always, remember, there's a better life out there. Let's get after it. Peace.